everyone, welcome back to Cardvoyant. I'm Kris and I'm your Cardvoyant, and well, it's come to this where I'm just jumping on. Um, and I don't know if we're devolving into what I'm wearing or if this is just me becoming my more natural self. I decided to wear my Giants gear today because, baseball season isn't happening. And that's, man, that's a bitter pill to swallow for some of us. Opening day was actually supposed to be on my birthday, so I guess we won't be doing that this year. But in the spirit of life must go on, I wanted to do this reading for you today. And I've been thinking about it a long time. When I started the channel, I wasn't sure that I wanted to do anything that looked sort of like predictions because tarot cards, they're so associated with fortune telling, and I kind of didn't want it to be that because there's so much more. And if you've ever had a reading, for me, hopefully that's something that you've discovered, that the cards they have a lot to offer in a lot of different ways, and it's always surprising the things that'll come up. So I wanted to do this reading specifically about what is going on and maybe even what's likely to happen. That's something I'll ask my guides, sort of where this is leading. I mean, anything that they want to tell us. And as I always say, as I've said, many times, and I always say in readings, private readings, what it would be good for us to know, what we need to know at this time, and what it will help us to know. So those are the questions I'm going to be asking as I shuffle the cards. I have these specific questions in mind, but again, we'll see if they're answered. And as I said, those specific questions are kind of like, what is happening? When is this likely to end? Maybe even how is it likely to end? What do we do? What can we do to sort of move this along and also to help us survive this mentally, physically, and spiritually? So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle. Again, I shuffle for a while. And at this point, before I've begun shuffling, I don't even know how many cards I'm going to lay down. So feel free to fast forward. I may even edit some of this out so that you don't have to watch me shuffle. But I felt kind of like it's important because I want people to know that this is the process that's actually happening, that I'm actually doing this in real time. And there's no sort of, setup or anything like that. I'm going to tip the computer down so you can see again, and we'll go from there. All right, so I knew right away that as I began shuffling that I wanted to put down 5 cards. And actually 5 cards isn't a lot for what we are talking about here. This is a big subject, but let's go ahead and see what we've got. All right, well, let's get started with this reading. Um, Probably not what you wanted to see, but what you might expect to see. This very top card, we've got these 2 top cards, which I always feel like is kind of the overarching or umbrella message. And we've got 2 major arcana cards. In fact, in this reading of 5 cards, we've got 3 of the 5 that are major arcana cards. And that is extremely unusual. I mean, that is a lot of major arcana cards to have in a 5-card reading. Actually, in any reading, but in this 5-card reading. So let's go through these one by one. And I tend to read top to bottom, left to right. So that's how we'll deal with this. And this first card is the Death card. Now, this means a couple of things. This is talking about a couple of things here. Um, First of all, this is quite literal, and you know, I'm sure that you suspected that when we saw that turned over the Death card. This is talking about this actual number of deaths that are happening right now, people crossing over, people transitioning. Um, this experience, this real life, true, undeniable experience that this virus, this COVID-19, this coronavirus is actually killing people. And the numbers are going up. They're going to go up. I mean, the word I heard is exponentially, but, you know, I'd like to be able to temper that and just say um, that they are going to continue to increase for a time. And that's just the trajectory that we're on. Um, but there's a realization in this. There's a realization in this Death card. And that realization should be that this is much more than about physical death, um, as it relates to people, human death, right? This is about the death of many things. This is about the death of um, old practices, of, as I said, institutions, in some cases governments, certainly of government leaders, that not meaning that they're necessarily going to die, but that the power is, although some will. Um, some high profile, high up people will transition, perish during this time. Um, Notice, if you can, hold it closer, the fiery eyes of the white horse. Now, this white horse represents purity. In this case, it represents for us rebirth. But do you see the fiery eyes of the horse? This is talking about the crucible, the fire, the the refiner's fire that we have to go through to get to the other side. Um, you know, we've set this up. We've set this up to happen so that this can happen, and in a lot of ways, because we've been pushing, a certain number of us, many of us, the majority of us have been pushing for this for a while, for this change in institution, for this change of the power structure, right? For the change of our understanding of how the world should work or should be able to work, the possibility that the world has, that we as a species, that we also as souls have the ability to live by. I mean, we have been trying to change these things, and it has been slow, and it has been incremental, and it has been, in many cases, two steps forward and one step back. So this is a reckoning of sorts. This is a global change that is that has been stalled and is now moving forward. And you can see the different power structures. I mean, you can see the king who has perished. I mean, you can see the religious figure who is calling out to death. This is prayer, but this is also the understanding that the power doesn't lie within this figure. It it lies within each of us. So this is like, I think this comes as the first card because this is what's on all of our minds. Like, not only what is happening, but what is going to happen to me or my loved ones? Am I going to actually survive this? Now, those are individual questions. The I guess the message here is that there is something happening here that is not only kind of, I don't want to say supposed to happen, because what is actually happening is that we are bringing about change. We are bringing about change with help from the non-physical world, but of course we're all part of that non-physical world as well. There is a, I was going to say method to the madness, but that's not what it is. There is a purpose to what we are going through. There's a purpose to this sort, almost it feels like forced change, but what it is collective agreement for change finally. And it's happening like this because the power structures that we're dealing with were so entrenched that they're they were so strong and entrenched, and so like what I see is stone pillars. They're so immovable by the ways that we've previously moved and changed things, that this is the way that it's like the only way that could happen, and the only way that can bring us through the towers in the background to the dawn of a new day. So I mean, I hope that's a helpful message, a hopeful message. It should be, but I know that there's this individual angst. I mean, of course, we all feel it. I feel it. We all have family. We all have, loved ones, and there's ourselves, and there's just this tension, this underlying worry. So let's talk about that a little bit. I think this moon card, which is another major arcana card, addresses some of that, is meant to address some of that, because you get this stark reality of the physical world, the things that are happening in the physical world with this death card, but then you get this moon card. And the moon card is all about a couple of things. It's all about the non-physical nature of the world, about the things that are happening sort of behind the scenes, when you think of behind the scenes as the non-physical world, about our intuition, about the sort of the blessing that we have from the other side, because we are all part of that. I mean, we're eternal beings in a physical form. So it's talking about that. It's talking about the ways it's talking about where our power lies, right? We're all feeling a little bit powerless now, but our power lies and resides always in our eternal nature. You even see that in the two figures of the sort of the wolf and the dog. And in this instance, it's talking about our very physical selves, which I would term the wolf figure, and our eternal self, our more spiritual selves, our non-physical selves, that is symbolized here by the dog, because that's this feeling of unconditional love. You also see the reminder of the lobster coming out of the water, and the water is always symbolizing our intuition, our deeper selves, our spiritual selves that resides like within and without our physical structure, and how important and how much we can rely on that, right? And I know that, and we'll get to this in some of the other cards, but I know that there's that feeling of, but tell me, what should I do? Can I go to the grocery store? I mean, where am I going to buy toilet paper? There's so much of the physical world happening around us now. It so intrudes on our sense of security that it's very difficult to think of these bigger things, even though they're at the top of the reading here, so they're the most important. But it's very difficult to think of them because we are so surrounded by physical necessities and physical fears. But this card is attempting to let us know that, as always, the greatest peace that we can find is within ourselves. And that comes through a lot of the things I've talked about in the previous few videos. That comes through the things that make us happy, the things that make us feel safe, the things that give us joy. And that can be so many things. I mean, that can be texting with friends, or talking to friends on the phone or FaceTime. We in our family have like several family chats, where I have a chat like that's just my kids. I have a chat that's with our nieces and nephews and my sisters. We have a sisters chat, and all these different ways that we can just kind of connect with each other through the day, little by little. So that gives us this feeling of not being so isolated, but also remembering the things that are important to us, those eternal connections. Um, but you can find this happiness still in many other ways. I talked about music. I talked about color, books. You know, I'm really. I'm sure there's probably most of us have books in our home that we haven't read, and now's a chance. We have TV. We have radio. We have podcasts. We have so many things that can, if we will allow them to, reconnect us to things that bring us joy in our lives. And every time we experience that joy, we raise our vibration. And you've seen all these videos. I was watching them today, like people singing and people singing together. These people, people making like group concerts over the internet, and things like that. I mean, and people sharing their artwork, people sharing poetry. There's a project of people writing inspirational things on sidewalks with sidewalk chalk. There's just all these ways that we are being inspired to connect with this eternal part of ourselves, and to find joy in the moment, which is a lesson we need to learn. People like so many people, there are so many really great leaders out there right now, but I do think especially of Eckhart Tolle when he talks so much about living in the now. And that's what this is about, because that's the place not only of our power, but it's the only place where we can truly find joy, even in the best of times, right? Within ourselves. We find happiness within ourselves. We can't rely on people or things to sort of shove happiness into our being. We have it there. We just have to go inside and access it in whatever ways that we can. One thing I'll say while I'm on that topic is maybe in the comments in this video, if you want to leave pictures of the things that bring you joy. Today is National Puppy Day, so you know, puppies, animals of all kinds that bring you joy. Share books, share music, share videos, inspiration, anything that you are doing right now to access the joy that is your eternal right, privilege, and gift. So let's talk about these bottom cards. So these bottom cards are often talking about, you know, what I'll have a couple cards on top, and as we've got these major arcana cards, so we know that they're talking about this big picture. And then down here, we've got these three cards. One of them, again, is a major arcana card, and it's awesome card. But then we've got these other two cards, okay? So first of all, this Five of Wands card. This is so telling. And you know, I think that this card is going on above us in most cases. I mean, it is going on in the midst of us. We do see these stories of people bickering, fighting in grocery stores and just in other ways, you know. And I know that not everybody is being able to, you know, when you're on lockdown, as we are, or what should I say, sheltering in place orders, as we are here in California, and many places are across not only the United States, but the globe, that sometimes we're in difficult situations with difficult personalities who are family members or who we happen to be sheltering in place with, and sometimes that's not easy. And so you have situations like this, because this Five of Wands, it is about, as wands are, creative things, creative energy, new things, new ideas, and stuff like that. But you can see the issues that they're having in this card, and this is not all-out warfare. This is bickering. I mean, these are ideas being flung back and forth at each other that are being, you know, swatted back and forth. And I do feel like this is a time when world leaders. I mean, as I said, I just talked about the things that are happening within our own little households and our own lives and the things that we're seeing. But this is talking specifically about world leaders. It's also talking about a little bit about the medical profession. Let me see if there's more. It's talking about the media. It's talking about people in various kinds of positions of power. And there's just so much back and forth right now of people um, sort of bandying about ideas, trying to figure out what's best. Now, um, a lot of this, I mean, this is, man, is this happening in the White House? Um, this bickering and this fighting for what it is people fighting for what they want, for their own self interests. Um, there's a feeling of trying to almost like make it seem or offering sort of like crumbs or offering things to people, but this feeling of, we're gonna fight for or bicker about things because we want we want what we want, right? What's going to benefit us. And I'm talking about people within the White House and the administration trying to get theirs in the midst of making things at least seem better. So there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of, I mean, I'll categorize it as bickering, but it's it's truthful bickering. That's the word I heard. It's truthful bickering and trying to decide how to deal with this medically. I do feel like there's something coming that's going to help. And I've heard this like several times over the past few days. It's a combination of drugs. It's something that is starting to, what's happening is, and this is, I'm seeing Germany, I think this is happening there, but other places too. The Cubans have a good grasp on this. But what's happening is there's like a combination of drugs and they keep like taking something out and then adding something in. Like this seems to be working, but maybe this isn't as effective as it could be. So we're going to take out this part and add something in. And um, this is not what the Donald Trump has been talking about. This is something, as I said, it's like seems to be centered in Germany, but there are a couple other places, maybe like Asian countries, maybe like South Korea um, or Vietnam, but also Cuba, and they are having dialogues with each other. And there is this. I don't want to categorize it as tension. It's kind of this back and forth of. Um, it's quite intellectual. It's this intellectual. I mean, I'm hearing the word bickering, but it's not in a negative way. It's like we are trying to figure this out, and so we're adding and we're taking away, we're adding and taking away. What I feel like is there's at least four, a combination of at least four known drugs. And the thing is, and this is kind of why it comes across as bickering too, is it can be different for the individual patient. So eventually there will be kind of like a protocol, but then again, it will be up to the individual patient, but also the area. There's something that has to do with the area of the world that they're living in, that they may use one more than the other. Um, but it's effective and it's startlingly effective. It's startlingly effective. And there's no denying that it's effective. And they've already started to see some results, but they're cautious with saying this is something that works because they don't want to, first of all, they don't want to cause a run on the drugs, profiteering in some cases, not in those countries, but here, or within the drug companies that some of them may be even headquartered here. So there's some of that, but they're also scientists, and they're cautious by nature, and they don't want to say something that is overly optimistic. So they're trying to sort of maintain their scientific integrity, but they're also understanding the urgency of this matter. And so there's a feeling of positive bickering. I don't know how else to say it. Um, but it is positive, okay? But the thing is that this thing is an attempt to topple, and I'm talking about us as a collective trying to move things forward, and the other side trying to help move things forward. So there is this feeling of a collective push to change things, and we need to change things, and we want to change things, and this is an effective way of changing things. And I'm not just talking about the virus, because as some of you have experienced, there are other things going on that are sort of like, wow, what else could happen? You know, there are earthquakes. There's going to be some weather related incidents. There's economic things that are happening. These power things that trickle down to us. I'm trying to think what else, because this is physical earth stuff as well. It feels like well, what I'm hearing is crop failures. I don't think that means famine. It's just this thing of oh, what else could happen? Well, the answer is what else needs to happen to bring about change. And, to be honest, I don't feel like all of the change comes at once. There's not this necessarily. There is in some ways. There are some things that are dramatic topplings of structures, but there are other things that are set up to begin toppling and changing that may take years, that may take decades, but the beginning happens, right? But there are some people, some things that are changed, and rather dramatically and rather quickly. Okay. So so I think the message that I want to say is that or that I'm sort of like, the words that need to come out are that this is something that we're bringing about for the betterment of mankind as a species, and as a tool for us to use as non-physical beings in a physical environment, right? Because this is a tool that we use to learn and grow and expand this physical world, but it's gotten to a place where we are not expanding in the most positive ways, certainly not expanding to our full ability to expand in love, that eternal growth that we are meant to expand through and to. But in the middle of this reading, these bottom three cards, I'm going to tip this down because I want you to see again the reading, how it looks. So we've talked about these two cards that are this overarching message. We've talked about some of the physical reality of what's going on right now. And then we have this middle card central to this bottom row. And it's this very awesome world card. Now, the world card is the culmination of the major arcana, and it's an assurance to us. It has something that's interesting to me. It has these symbols that are the symbols of the four fixed signs of the zodiac. And I have for days and days and days been seeing combinations of fours, repeating number fours, ones and fours mostly. I'll look up and it's 1144. I'll do something and I look up and it's 444. There's numbers that have come across in other ways that are fours. Now, fours are, as you can see in this card, you've got, as I said, the four fixed signs of the zodiac, but think especially of the seasons that are symbolized in fours. Um, and think of the biblical words of, for everything there's a season, right? And this is the season that we're in now, this season of growth and change, of rebirth. And we get this world card as a reassurance of the ways in which the other side, the non-physical world, is supporting the physical. I'm sure there must be so much fear wrapped around so many very traditionally religiously oriented cultures, societies, churches, obviously, that these are the last days, that this is Armageddon, that, the rapture is about to happen. And this is a reassurance of the support from the other side for the physical world, because it's so connected with this world. They're not truly separate in any way. And so this building of this rebirth of the physical world, this shifting of the physical world to make it more conducive to um, the growth in love. The non-physical world wants the physical world to contain and exhibit and offer. That is all so intertwined, uh, always, with the non-physical world, right? We're working hand in hand. This isn't a we're going to destroy you kind of thing. That's not the intention. The intention is to use this medium, this physical medium, this world medium that we live in, as a tool for us to grow as eternal beings. And that's the universe. As I mean, we name it the universe, but when we think of the universe as this galaxy, it's so much more than that, so much more. And it is always growing, always expanding, and that includes the all that is, the God figure, however you want to think of that, as continually growing and expanding, which is what we want, right? I mean, this what what purpose does the universe have if not growth and expansion? It's not complete. Else why would we be here, right? We're here to grow and expand and learn, add to that collective growth, understanding, and knowledge of the universe, of the all it is, of all of us. And this card speaks to it. Look at the world figure containing the magician's wands. This is talking about the spiritual as it meets the physical. There's purpose to this, right? And not only that, not only is there purpose to it, we will survive this and be better for it. Okay, we're bringing this about, even though it feels so chaotic and almost destructive. It's constructive. It's constructive. We're bringing about a better world. We honestly are. We're bringing about a better world. It's what we want for our children. It's what we want for future generations. Bringing about this loving, more beautiful, more accepting, more spiritual, more connected world. This world. So finally, we get this Four of Swords. Now, you can see the swords on on the wall. You can see the sword underneath the figure who is in repose, who seems to be, even as he's sleeping or resting, praying, right? And you can also see these figures in the stained glass windows that are very religious, very mother and child, very Madonna figure, or it could be Christ figure, however you want to think of it. But it is this figure of hope, of connection, of consolation that is involved in this window here. That's always, these stained glass windows are always indicative of hope. And then you've got us in this figure lying in repose, and we are kind of all stuck right now, in our homes, or however you want to think of it, as sort of having this idea of sheltering in place. And it's more than just, well, I'm here in my home and I shouldn't go out. It's more than that. It's sheltering in place, spiritually, physically, emotionally. And I know it's taxing. I know it's trying to people, because it's that, it's the old song, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone. And that's kind of where we are. We're feeling that intensely right now, that freedom of movement, freedom of gathering, so many things that we're feeling intensely right now. But if we can shift that thinking, if we can shift this a little bit to, man, we've got these swords on the wall that have been bugging us for so long, that's been an underlying tension for a long time. The things that are happening just in the world, the disparity of the sort of the moneyed elite and the rest of us, between what government is saying, what government is doing, how our governments are providing for us. This in the United States, especially, this idea of, can I even access what I need? And I'm talking about before, like, can I afford health care? Will I have enough money to make rent, or do I have to choose between my prescription drugs and food? There has been this low level vibration of tension for so long, and now it's laid bare. These four swords on the wall are now so apparent in our everyday life. I mean, we cannot do anything but face them, except that we do have this inner repose that's available to all of us. We talked about it in the moon card, right? This is our inner selves that's available to us. And this is a time to literally sleep on it. And the sleep can be metaphorical, but it is this idea of pause where we not only seek our own inner guidance, but call on help from the other side in the form of prayer, in the form of meditation, which is a form of prayer. My sister Julie, you haven't met if you've seen the psychic sister videos, but she is a couple states away, and she was telling me that she just took up yoga about 6 months ago. She's just, a couple years older than I am. So we're all basically the same age, all of us sisters in so many ways, all of us in so many ways. But she took up yoga, and she was telling me how much of a blessing it's been to her during these times. She's like me, she's asthmatic, she's a cancer survivor, and this has given her peace. And there are a lot of tools like that right now. And thankfully, luckily, I mean, blessingly, we have these tools available to us over our television sets, the internet, all these different ways that we connect to watch videos like this, and hopefully it's helping, but also to learn yoga, to sing, to watch movies that make us happy, to be able to not even have to go out and get a book because you can download it on your computer or your Kindle, or however you are able to connect in that way. So we do have this time of literal time of repose when we are almost forced. What I'm hearing is forced blessing. That's the word that I hear. It's a forced blessing where we are able to take time and connect. And even as these swords have presented this tension and a way that things are a way for us to see what things we want to cut out of not only our individual lives, but our mass experience. Even as those swords have been there and they're lined up on the wall now, we also have this sword that is supporting us, that's letting us know that we have the ability to cut these things out of our life. We have the ability to hasten this by forcing those things out of our lives too, by demanding that things change. And that's what's happening here. It's like the collective consciousness and unconscious teaming together with the non-physical world to force this change, to force out these these things that are impeding our growth, impeding the amount of love that we feel, impeding the ways in which we connect with the other side. And we control that. And part of the thing that we can do now is literally this. And I don't mean just ignore things, quite the contrary. When you are physically doing things, whether it's, calling or texting your congressman or congressperson, I should say, or whether you are praying and meditating and concentrating on the things that you want, not the things that you don't want, concentrating on the positive. I mean, I just said forced blessing, and so you should be thinking of the blessings, not the things that are or have been impeding us, but the things that we want, the blessings that we are calling upon the universe to, non-physical world, our inner selves, everything, all of us, each other, the blessings that we are calling sort of down from heaven, if you want to think of that way, that we need and want and deserve. Doing just that as we meditate, as we pray, working physically and spiritually to bring about these good things, the things we want, and to stop concentrating on the things that we don't want. And even as much as we do these things that we need to do by isolating, by self-isolating, by shutting down things that we need to stop the spread of this virus, to doing things like washing our hands, wearing gloves if you need to, just not taking any risks. Even as we are aware of that and are doing that, we need to concentrate on what we want. We want health, we want treatment, we want change. And so we concentrate on those things that we do want, and we shift our consciousness and the collective consciousness toward the good things that we want. And it moves things along. It really does. It moves things along. It moves us from this lying down position to that window of hope. That's what it does. And we have the promise, right? Right in the middle of this bottom card that's talking about things that are, this bottom row of cards that are talking about things that are going on right now in the physical world, with all this sort of back and forth that is both positive and negative, but very positive when it's talking about the medical challenges, because even though I categorized it as bickering, it's a very positive way of just figuring out what works and eliminating what doesn't work. So it's a good thing, right? And there's also, as I said, this going on within the halls of the White House and in other places where there's other administrations like governors, mansions, it's going on there too, where there's bickering of what do we do, what do we don't do. Well, um, that'll get that'll get all shaken out. That'll things are going to get rattled up and some things are going to change, but it is incumbent upon us to do those things that are wise and that we that are simple, that we know to do, supporting leaders, strong leaders who are working for the public good, the universal good, and then just doing things ourselves, that are smart and wise. I mean, not taking unnecessary risks and not putting anybody else at risk because of our own movements and ideas. So, this card is this bottom row is full of, you've got these just two cards on either end, the Five of Wands, the Four of Swords, that are giving us solid information about what's happening and what we can actually do. And then this card of promise right in the middle, that, there's a season for things. And right now we're in a season of change. I know that one thing that's been on our mind so much is, how long is this going to last? I feel like it's very malleable right now. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of waking up that's happening right now among people who are in leadership roles. They have they have the power to affect a lot of change and to speed this along. Um, I don't feel like this is a long, drawn out process, even though I know people are saying 18 months. It just doesn't feel that long. It feels like it could be that long if we allow people to, and ourselves to do things that make it worse. But we have it within our power, our collective power, to bring about goodness and change rather quickly. Startlingly quickly is what I heard. It's up to us. Um, it's up to us. So much of it's up to us. So so much of it is up to, um, calling our leaders to task, taking them to task, insisting on things, doing our part, calling on help from the non-spiritual, non-physical world, and, not only trusting that things can get better, but insisting that things get better, insisting that things get better from those in the physical world who have the ability to affect change, and also from the non-physical world, in that we, we insist, that's the word I keep hearing, that we insist on moving toward the good, on moving toward love, on moving toward light, on loving one another, helping one another. And in large part, and a big part of that is insisting that we don't allow others to hurt people, right? We have to be we have to be a force for love. We have to insist that each of us is of equal value, each of us, right? And we have to clear out a path. We have to, people that will not insist on all of us being equal and help for everyone and love and light, just have to be taken off the path. Uh, and I mean that it push aside in the power that they control, or that they have. We have to push aside their power and sort of like get out of the way, because we are moving in this direction. We are moving in this direction. And we have to, those of us who understand that we're moving in this direction, have to make sure that those that we are entrusting with power, and the power to guide us and lead us, are also on the same path, in the same direction that we're going. This is what we have to do. So there you have it. Again, this isn't, I don't see the cards as fortune telling. So they give us guidance. There's always a positive message. There's always a message of hope. There's always guidance. And I think that's what we've gotten. What we didn't get is a date, or, this is exactly what's going to happen, and this is who it's going to happen to, because, so much is changeable, so much is malleable. So we all have our own free will. So we cannot precisely and predict what somebody's going to do. You can predict probabilities. I mean, you can have probabilities, and I think that's what we're seeing here. But we have our free will, so let's use that in the best possible way that we can. I think if you're watching this, if you're tuning into this, you're trying very hard to do that. So thank you. And I hope that all of you are well. I hope that this reading has been helpful to you. As again, I'll just say, go ahead in the comments and post things that you're finding joy in at this moment, so that maybe we can also find joy in them. If we're running out of things to find joy in, maybe you can help us find some things to find joy in. And please take some time to have just some stillness in your life, to sit in stillness and to try to breathe deeply and connect without any words in your head. If that means listening to music, listening to, I don't know, the sound of your fan or heater or air conditioner, whatever you've got that's just sort of that drone. If it means using noise canceling headphones, anything that you can, where you can concentrate on something to take your mind off of most everything. That'll allow for some connection. That's what meditation is. So you find it in whatever form works for you. So there you have it. I hope this proves helpful. I will post more things as we get along. Who knows? I may even dress better and put on some makeup. I don't know. I'm not going to go crazy, but I just might do that for another video. So until next time, please take care of yourself. Please take care of those around you. Please pray for help. Pray for moving things forward in the direction of love. So until next time, I'm Kris, and I'm your Cardvoyant. Take care. Bye-bye.